Hello, good afternoon. I'm Muhammad Kakasur and my presentation of the principle of the photo detection. The first is the outline, and we are talking about the introductions and two classes of photo detections, photo detectors, thermal detectors, photo detector materials, and conclusion, and the last one is the reference. The first we are talking about the introductions of the photo detections. The photo detection converts an optical signal into a signal of another form. Most photodetectors convert the optical signals into electrical signal that can be further processed or stored. All photodetectors are square law detectors that are responsive to the power or intensity. Rather than the field amplitude of an optical signal, the electrical signal generated by an optical signal is either photocurrent or photovoltage, but is proportional to the power of the optical signal. When you show this figure is when the incident photon, this is the incident photons, and is the absorbed by the junctions, and after passing through the P layer, and the light photons incident on the junctions produces the large number of electron hole pairs, and the electrons are attracted towards N region. Toward to the N regions, and the holes are attracted towards the P region. Due to the reverse bias of the diode, the current passes through the external resistor. The current through the load depends on the intensity of the light incident on the diode. The absorbed energy presses a bond electron across the bandgap. We have two different classes of the photodetection. The first is the photon photodetectors, and the second is the thermal photodetectors. When we are talking about them, the first is the photon detectors. The photon detectors are quantum detectors based on the photoelectric effect, which converts a photon into an impinged electrons or an electron hole pairs. And a photon detector is responsive to the number of photons absorbed by the detector. And the second is the thermal detectors. The thermal detectors are based on the photothermal effect, and which converts optical energy into heat. Thermal detectors respond to the optical energy rather than the number of photons. And when we are comparing photon and thermal detectors, the response of a photon detectors as a function is a function of the optical wavelength with a long wavelength categories that of a thermal detectors. If the wavelength is independent, a photon detectors can be much more responsive than a thermal detectors in a particular spectral region, which typically falls somewhere within the range from the near ultraviolet to the near infrared. By comparison, a thermal detector normally covers a wide spectral range from the deep ultraviolet to the far infrared. With a nearly constant response, photon detectors can be made extremely sensitive. Some of them have a photon counting capability that is not possible for a thermal detector. A photon detector can be designed to have a high response speed capable of following very fast optical signals. Most of the thermal detectors are relatively slow in response, because the speed of a thermal detector is limited by thermalization, through heat diffusion, and by heat dissipation, when the power of an optical signal varies. For these reasons, photon detectors are suitable for detecting optical signals in a photonic system, whereas thermal detectors are most often used for optical power measurements or infrared imaging. In this chart, and when you look this, we have the photodetectors materials. The first, when we show the table, the operating wavelength ranges from the several different photodetector materials. We have the 5 different materials: the silicon and germanium, gallium arsenide, in gallium arsenide phosphor. Then we have the difference energy band gap, and we have the difference value of the wavelength cut-off and the wavelength range. When you talking about these tables and the photodetector materials, you have two types: the direct band gap and indirect band gap. Direct band gap semiconductor absorption of photons is more efficient, and indirect band gap semiconductor is less efficient because require the assistance of a photon so that the momentum and energy are conserved. Ideally, a photodetector's materials should be chosen with a band gap energy slightly less than the photon energy, corresponding to the longest operating wavelength of the system. This gives a sufficiently high absorption coefficient to ensure a good response, and here limit the number of the thermally generated carriers in order to achieve a low dark current, displacement current generated with no shaded light. And about the conclusion of this presentation, when we are talking about the photodetectors are sensors that can convert to the photons energy of the light into electrical signal. They are necessary for a various significant implementations like fiber optics communication system, process controls, environmental sensing, safety and security, and also aid defense related applications. And this is the references I using about this presentation, and I'm done about the presentation, and I hope it is useful for you. Thank you.